The Djinn, a supernatural horror directed by Justin Powell and David Charbonier. And I think it's worth keeping an eye on these two directors because they've had some ambitious projects where they've worked together, and although they haven't quite struck gold yet, I think their ideas have great potential. And the film stars Ezra Dewey and Rob Brownstein, but The Djinn follows a mute boy who becomes trapped in his apartment with a sinister monster after making a wish to fulfill his heart's greatest desire. So I became interested in this film after the first trailer dropped about a month or so ago, I think, and it's pretty obvious that they had to get very creative with this movie, with the story in particular, because after a while there's really not that much to look at. And the cinematography wasn't bad, but I think I more so had an issue with the composition of the scenes, mainly because about 99% of the movie takes place inside of a 2-bedroom apartment, and you know, that kind of limit them a lot. They really didn't have much room to stretch their legs, and that really affected the creative imagery behind the movie. And although I always mention that I love when a film can get across an intriguing story in an enclosed environment or tight spaces, this film just couldn't do it because of some clear continuity errors and plot holes that I might touch on a bit later if they aren't too spoilery. But let's really dive into a few aspects of The Djinn that I happen to really take note of, and I really wanted to bring them up here in this review. So first thing I noticed is that the Djinn is like a lower budget version of the Wishmaster, if you guys have seen the Wishmaster. I mean, a lot of stuff is used here when it comes to taking on a human form, and not exactly when it comes to taking on a human form, because here it's more necessary for the demon in the Djinn, and in the Wishmaster it was more so something that he did to sort of hide amongst humans, but he was able to move around on the earth without actually having to change his form, and he could be in his normal Wishmaster demon form. And also when it came to making a wish that backfires in some way afterwards, like you make a wish and things just don't turn out the way you planned.
Yo man, are you tripping? Who the fuck are you?
I'm the Wishmaster. I make wishes come true. I believe you said you'd like to see your lawyer go fuck yourself. I could arrange that.
What's in it for you?
Your soul.
Yeah, fuck it, man. Make it happen.
Free.
What are you saying, man? You saying that I can go free?
That's right, Robert. And of course, you know, with my connections at the police department and the DA's office, well, you know, I could... Oh! God damn, what was that?
Are you okay, man?
Yeah. Whew. Excuse me.
What about my case, man?
Or, you know, there's a spin on the wish to where it affects the person who made the wish, where they're just not quite happy with the way that things turned out. But of course they couldn't go too far once again because of the budget. I mean, even the kid's wish had to be simple because, again, the budget. Shit, maybe he should have just wished for a bigger budget for the movie. And of course I'm just fucking around, but there is some limited space to work with here in this movie because of the camera shots, and they really tend to linger way too long sometimes. I mean, it's really like they decided to just tape the damn camera to a turtle's back and just let him slowly wander around the apartment, getting these really, you know, slow pans of the walls and the kitchen and just these different areas to really burn time because, you know, they're trying to meet that feature-length runtime. There's just a lot of slow panning and scenes of a lot of nothing happening, and it all happens to work up to these quite underwhelming jump scares. I will admit though that in the beginning of the film I thought there was some real clever camera work and smooth sound design with a lot of the early scares in the movie, but then it becomes very repetitive and boring like real quick. Also, the kid actor here, Ezra Dewey, had a pretty decent performance as well in the beginning, but towards the end, you know, he started to get a bit cheesy, and I don't know if that was specifically his performance. I mean, I really want to blame it more so on the writing and direction of the film. And the sound design was okay, nothing too special, but it's well executed mostly. I'd say it's like satisfactory level. As I sort of mentioned earlier with the jump scares, it kind of gets creative with those moments specifically, but just overall, I would say it's satisfactory level. And mostly good musical scores. You know, they use the music more than anything to really solidify the time period. And of course, along with the environment, you know, the furniture and props in the apartment, but the music really set the tone for this time, this era that they wanted to recreate. You know, that old synthwave shit with the bounce to it, you know what I'm saying? And is it just me, or has every film sort of like, every film or even TV show surrounding kids or teenagers specifically in the 80s, they're all using that synthwave type of music? I mean, I know that was a a genre of music that existed during that time period, but it seems like that's everyone's go-to now, especially since the success of Stranger Things. But I don't know, you guys let me know down in the comments below if you agree. And I'm not really complaining about it, that's just something I want to point out because I've noticed the popularity or the growing popularity of it. But yeah, I love it. I think it's great. I love that music. But you guys just, like I said, let me know what you think. Honestly, I think they could have had more fun with the concept if they made it set in modern day, where they could have utilized technology a little more with the kid having a smartphone, because they used the generic ghostly trope of tech turning on and off by itself and shit like that. And the time period overall just doesn't really seem to do much for the story, complimentary wise, outside of the score I mentioned. As an opposing viewpoint, you can say that it possibly added more to the kid feeling trapped because kids in the 80s didn't have cell phones. But I just think that solidifying a time period here really didn't aid the overall story much at all, personally. So there's really only like one other aspect of this film that I would like to discuss, and that's the continuity errors. Alright, so early in the film and about halfway through the second act, a lot of the rules and guidelines are established surrounding the Djinn, like information regarding its many forms and who it can become. And there's some reoccurring patterns in the film between the boy and the Djinn as far as how he combats it and the strategies he uses in this little apartment to avoid it. And there starts to be some plot holes that slowly emerge, or just minor inconsistencies with the story. But then there's like a major one that occurs at the end. And I was sitting there like, where the f are all of these new aspects coming from? Because if that was the case, then why didn't it occur earlier in the film? And if you're someone who's just like me, where you become very analytical throughout a film, you really start analyzing certain aspects. I mean, it's just a film, so you can chill out and not really, let your imagination run away like that. But, there's just inconsistencies you start to notice, especially when a film like this goes through so much trouble, or not necessarily trouble, but they make sure that they want you to understand the patterns that they're trying to create, especially when they're reoccurring patterns. Like, this thing happens, the boy does this, and then this thing happens, and then this will happen again. And you start to understand these patterns that they create. So when you start breaking your own rules, I think that creates a lot of issues, especially with a lower budget film like this, where they've gone through so much trouble to make sure that they have sort of like a solid atmosphere inside of this 2-bedroom apartment, and really trying to make it entertaining for an audience. And then you have issues with your story. That's kind of the only thing you have that you can count on, and then you have issues there as well. And with all of that said, I have to admit that this was still a very ambitious project for these two directors, so I still give them props for at least pursuing this type of project. And and they really tried to create something different, but I really think that they probably should have just waited on this one, and maybe till they probably had a better budget, or maybe just sort of worked out some kinks in the script. So I'm giving the Djinn a 4.5 out of 10. It starts out interesting and somewhat exciting, but once the painfully obvious question sets in of how the hell are they going to make this feature-length runtime work with so little to do and not much to see, it doesn't pull any rabbits out of a hat or anything special. The excitement and potential just slowly dies with the film. And of course, this is just my guess. I could be completely wrong about this, but I feel like this film was probably meant to be a short. I mean, this story itself could have been told in like half the time that they used. And also, I actually don't think that having the main protagonist being stuck inside was a bad idea, but it definitely should have been a larger home at least. I mean, all of these events happening inside of this little apartment are just kind of unbelievable. I mean, the film itself, it's based on the Djinn, so of course it's fictional, but just it would be more exciting and entertaining if it was on more square footage. If you're still interested in watching the Djinn though, the film releases on May 14th. Also, I think it has same-day streaming as well. And personally, I would really just suggest watching this film at home on VOD, unless you're just really excited to get back out there again since theaters are opening back up, just to watch something on the big screen. But personally, I would suggest passing on the big screen. But there you have it, and if you enjoyed the content, you know what to do. Thank you for watching.